Oh, fantastic. Dolly, I think we've got to go. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What we do want to do, we've had close to 700 registrations, so we do want to just give a little bit of extra time for anybody else to pop in. So we're going to do a hard start at 12:05. Our engineering team will just let us know as soon as everybody is in. So if you could just give us a couple of more minutes, we're going to put our cameras off in the meantime with a hard start at 12:05. Right, fantastic. 12:05. So again, I want to just say welcome to everybody. We've got a couple of latecomers, but we will definitely give you access to the recording at the end of the webinar. So thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to address this contentious subject for a lot of people. I know that it's a scary change that we're embarking on. But like so many other businesses, we are navigating this transition. So we source the answers and the information from the QCTO and the SETAs on a daily basis because they're working hand in hand in this transition. And that's the only way that we can really stay up to date, is by engaging with them constantly. So as soon as we get the information, we then interpret it, and we then determine what sort of impact it's going to have, not just on our learn, but also on our clients. So we're aware of the differing interpretations that we've been experiencing. The QCTO puts out policies and processes, and SETA then needs to drive and deliver against those. So sometimes the QCTO and the SETA interpretations are different, and then even the differing interpretations between the various SETAs. And in order to get clarity on all of that, what we've had to do is engage the QCTO and the client relevant SETA on a case-by-case and project-by-project basis. We're joined here today by corporate HR professionals, as well as independent HR professionals, and then also by other training providers. So for the corporate HR professionals, our intention is to shed compliance and impact on delivery processes, on regulations such as BEE and the SARS incentives, for the freelance skills development professional guidance based on our action, and refer you to a trusted partner to support you in the accreditation process and even offer some best practice advice. Like I learned, you would have invested significantly in the new material quality continuance. Sorry about that, we had a little bit of a technical glitch there. We're going to touch on the iLearn Day, the skills development role players, the QCTO on the NQF band and where they sit as an OQSF. And then we're going to address your concerns regarding the QCTO and SETA. We're also going to address your concerns around the QCTO qualifications, BBBEE and SARS. A brief on program categories that will sit within the QCTO, which is a really nice diagram that will help you understand things. The silver lining, absolutely critical, the iLearn qualifications, some quick links, the Q&A, and then we've got Dolly Mzeke, who's going to be joining us to share some technical insights with you around the QCTO. Okay, my name is Yulaine Kruger. I'm the General Manager at iLearn Corporate Services with the national portfolio, and all of our business units are working very closely together to put together solutions and strategies to make this transition as seamless as possible. So what we're going to be sharing with you today speaks a lot into how we've experienced the process, the transition, the accreditation, the impact on our clients, and hopefully you'll gain some more insights and we'll alleviate a couple of fears for you. I want to point out on this slide, key to what our intention is today is our purpose, and that is to empower people to empower others. So we are hoping that you will take this information and build it into your businesses, and that you will also share it with your suppliers. Okay, so let's just clarify a couple of things. There's been lots of information that's been going around. The SETAs are not falling away. They will remain responsible as quality partners to the QCTO. Dolly's going to go into a little bit more detail around what those responsibilities are. And then SETA is not being replaced by the QCTO. SETA is mandated by the NQF Act to oversee further development and implementation of the scheme that is instrumental in the purpose of the change of program accreditation from SETA to QCTO. This is a question that's come up in every single conversation that I've had with clients, like why is there this big change? And frankly, it's government's approach to addressing unemployment by means of qualifications that make individuals more employable. That'll speak to the silver lining that I'm going to give a little bit more detail on. And then the QCTO processes are more relevant and their processes are a lot stricter. So we all know that the SETA content seems to be a little bit dated. The qualifications that have been developed by the QCTO have been done so hand in hand with industry partners, so making it a lot more relevant. This slide gives you an indication of where the QCTO sits in the NQF band. All right, it's a sub-framework that they are responsible for. So we've got a Malusi here, we've got CHE over here, and then QCT over here. And the QCTO is responsible for qualifications from NQF1 through to NQF8, right at the top over here. And that should give you a really good indication of all of the role players. SACWA remains in place, the Department of Higher Education remains in place, and the SETAs will get an indication of where they fit into the role. Okay, so addressing your concerns.
Sorry, Elaine, can you please share your slides?
Oh, I must, oh gosh, okay, sorry. Please let me know when you can see them, Dolly.
Yes, I can see them now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for the heads up. All right, let's address some of your concerns around the QCTO and the SETA. Dolly, I just want to ask you, did you see the previous slide?
No.
No.
Okay, let's go back there. All right, let's go to this one over here. That's where I was highlighting. All right, so everybody can see over here where the QCTO sits, responsible for qualifications from NQF level 1 to 8. This is the sub-framework of the NQF, and this is where the QCTO sits over here. So higher education, SACWA, CHE, Umalusi, and SETAs all still fall into this space over here. To address some of your concerns around the QCTO and SETA transition period, the last learner enrollment, so the last day in which you can register a learner with a SETA or enroll a learner with SETA is the 30th of June 2024. And then providers have been given additional time until 2027 to teach out these qualifications. So if you're registering a learner or enrolling a learner on the 30th of June and you've done so successfully, the provider's got until 2027 to exit that learner on that SETA qualification. After the 30th of June, the SETA qualifications and unit standards will formally be recognized as legacy qualifications, and they can no longer be implemented. Now you can, if you've got the training material, some of it is still really good. You can use it as unaccredited business skills if you wanted to, or unaccredited industry-related programs, but they will not be viewed as accredited. The accreditation move from SETA to QCTO requires that new material be developed and the QCTO accreditation process be followed. The SETA material cannot be used for the for the QCTO accreditation. Unit standards, we're all familiar with that language. That's going to be replaced with modules within the qualifications and skills programs. So currently, and this is as of yesterday, information extracted from the QCTO website, 738 qualifications and part qualifications have been approved. There are 7 currently open for public comment, but there are thousands awaiting review and approval. So for example, we only currently have the contact center manager on an NQF level 5 available in the BPO for the BPO sector. There are others that are in development or awaiting approval or open for comment. so that which translates into thousands. So the QCTO also has minimal shorter programs. So the development of their skills program seems to have taken a little bit longer, and the credit value associated with those skills programs is considerably bigger. So we're not finding skills programs with 4 credits or 8 credits, etc. They're 20, 30, etc. So those are internal things that the QCTO is sorting out specifically to accommodate the shorter programs for occupational health and safety qualifications, first aid, firefighting, etc. Here is something that is absolutely critical. The QCTO does not call for learnership agreements. There's an application document that you fill in per qualification or per project that you intend on delivering. However, your SETA will still require you to complete a learnership agreement and register that learner or that project with them. We, as the training provider, are responsible for enrolling your learner with a QCTO. They now are the custodians of the qualifications, but you still have to do learnership agreements, specifically because BEE calls for it, as well as SARS, should you ever undergo an audit. So, like I said, the provider will enroll the learners with a QCTO and register the learners with your respective SETA. This protocol is also dependent on the SETA. So, for example, Service the SETA requires the employer to register the learners on their LMIS. So those are things that we're going to have to navigate SETA by SETA. Mandatory grants and discretionary grant funding will remain unchanged. Recently, a whole lot of discretionary grant funding windows opened, and you would have seen that they would have been very specific to occupational qualifications registered with a QCTO. For organizations who have awarded long-term projects to providers, your RFPs, your RFQs, your tenders, for SETA-specific accredited program, an interim solution will apply here, where we will provide in-house competence to the beneficiaries of the learning until such a time that the QCTO releases programs that are comparable with the SETA accredited programs that have been selected to be delivered. The QCTO skills programs currently have a large credit allocation that will exceed the delivery days of the current SETA programs. So, for example, if we are delivering against a tender and there is a QCTO program that is similar, there is a 100% chance that the delivery of that program is not going to be 1 day or 2 days. It's more than likely going to go into 5, 6, or 7 days to deliver. I think it's important that the focus remain on closing the skills gaps that have been identified so as to not disadvantage the beneficiaries of those training interventions. The costs of the QCTO program, so they definitely are going to be slightly higher, especially because the ASA exam needs to be built into that. It's 2,500 Rand per exam per learner, roughly, and that's based on what SETA is funding. So that needs to be taken into consideration. And it will be very dependent on the number of credits. And I've got a couple of examples that I'm going to show you. There's, for example, an NQF4 program that has over 500 credits in it, which is going to change the duration of the program as well as the cost of the program. This is something that came up very, very often in conversations that we have with clients, as well as the questions that were submitted with the registrations for this webinar. So not all qualifications are registered as learnerships. However, the QCTO does have a category specifically assigned to learnerships. So it's critical when selecting a provider to obtain the Q number for the learnership. I've got a little down arrow on the right-hand side there, and that's an example of what the Q numbers will look like. These programs are recognized as category D on the learning matrix. That was a question that came up too. Occupationally directed instructional and work-based learning program that requires a formal contract and formally assessed by an accredited body, an institution or workplace. If you have a look at the BE learning matrix, category C speaks specifically to workplace experience and workplace learning that takes place after somebody has achieved their qualification, such as an internship. Consideration must be given to the number of credits, as this translates into notional hours, and therefore the duration or out-of-office training for employees will be impacted. There's the other down arrow, the smaller one, it shows you, if you look at the qualification at the bottom, where it says apparel and related machine mechanics, it's an NQF level 4, but there's 576 credits associated with that, which encourages us to then deliver that qualification, definitely not within a 12-month period, but more closer to 18 months or 24 months. The SARS incentives will continue to apply. The Section 12H has just been extended, so ETI and the 12H are still going to certainly apply, especially in light of the fact that it's a learnership with a Q number, if those are the programs that you select. Now, the QCTO website, and I've got a couple of links that you can follow, have broken it down nicely into skills programs as well as learnerships, and then also the full occupational qualifications. This is what I shared with you briefly earlier. I've included learnerships. Really, there's only 3 quadrants that would apply here. There's the occupational certificates and higher occupational certificates, and these would include your trades. There are the PART qualifications and then the skills programs, but it is important to know that the QCTO has given consideration to the need for qualifications to be recognized and registered as learnerships. So the silver lining, and as much as what there is confusion and doom and gloom surrounding this change, natural human instinct to be a little bit resistant to change, I think it's important that we consider what the learnership trends have been over the last 10 years. So for some providers, it's been very much a sausage factory of learners, in one side, out another side, recruitment of another 500 in and then out again. And these individuals have been gaining knowledge and experience across multiple industries with no clear direction related to a specific occupation or profession. So the occupational qualifications with QCTO removes that completely. Workplace experience has not always been monitored effectively and has not always been conducive to learning. The QCTO supports occupationally directed qualifications, making both employed and unemployed participants more employable. We've reviewed the content. The content is considerably more relevant. There are very clear career pathways with progressive learning pathways included, and that speaks to the diagram on the right. Approved workplaces ensure effective learning environments and mentor support. Dolly's going to give a little bit more detail on what that process looks like. And then qualifications are relevant and speak to the demands of the current workplace. Post-COVID, skill shortages, critical skills, etc., all of those will still apply. And then what I am particularly excited about is the degree to which 4IR skills have been addressed for the QCTO. This is just to give you an indication of the iLearn occupational programs. I've got 2 slides that will give you that indication, some of which have already been accredited, some of which we're awaiting site visits, and some the majority of which we're just waiting for our accreditation communication from the QCTO. But as you can see there, it's addressing multiple sectors: CETA, W and R, in-SETA services, mixed SETA. and then those ones over there, even the ETDP and TETA. I want to encourage you to do your homework. Have a look at the QCTO website. It's an extremely well put together website. It's user friendly and the information is very easily accessible. So please follow these links to have a look at where the part registration, registered qualifications are, the learnerships are, the learner enrollment and ASA registration process, for example. And I believe that a lot of your questions will be answered if you do exactly what we did, is research and engagement with a QCTO. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that has given clarity in a lot of areas. I'm going to hand over to Dolly now, and she is going to cover the technical aspects. Thank you so much, Dolly.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Good day, everybody. Good day, everybody. My name is Dolly. I've been in training and development for about 14 years now. I am quality assurance manager at Ireland, and I love what I do. So in my presentation, I'm going to be addressing some of the questions that have come through regarding the transition. And hopefully by the time we finish with the session, you will have all your answers. And I will be touch basing on some of the topics or questions that Elaine has spoken about. The first question that has come up quite a lot is, can we use the SETA material for the QCTO material? And I know Elaine has touched based on that. And the answer to this is definitely no. These are completely two different qualifications. When we're talking about SETA qualifications, we're talking about historical qualifications. These are strictly unit-based, and they're all about transferring the knowledge. And then when we are talking about occupational qualifications, we're talking about qualifications that are module-based. They are, the modules are covered on your knowledge modules, your practicals, and your workplace modules. And the QCTO qualifications are more about transferring the skills. The next question that has come up quite a lot is, what's going to happen to the SETAs? So nothing is going to happen to the SETAs. However, the SETAs and the QCTO will be working together in making sure that there's a smooth transition and getting the accreditation process done up until the certification process. We now refer to the SETAs as quality partners, QPs. So the role of the QCTO in this matter will now be to oversee the design of the occupational qualifications, and these occupational qualifications are developed by the quality partners, which are your SETAs. Their role also to oversee the accreditation process, implementation of the programs, assessment and certification of occupational qualifications. While the SETAs, which are now known as the QP quality partners, they are responsible for the development of qualifications, the development of external assessments. These are your ACEs, and these are exams that the learners will be required to write at the end of the program. The SETAs will also be responsible for the development and the publishing of exemplars of external exams. So these are your mock exams. They'll coordinate and manage external assessments, develop criteria for accreditation of assessment centers. As we all know that in order for the learners to be able to write ASA, we need to have accredited assessment centers. So there's also a bit of a confusion regarding accreditation of assessment centers. So if you apply for accreditation to be an assessment center, it does not necessarily mean that you can now allow the learners to come in and write for any qualification. The learners, you are only accredited to be an assessment center per qualification. So it's a different process every time. The SETAs are also responsible to oversee a workplace approval process. It is very important for employers, but I'll speak about this again at a later stage, for employers to make sure that their workplaces are approved by the SETAs before they can host learners. This is outside the MOU that we put together in preparation for the accreditation side process. The SETAs are also responsible for recommending the certification of learners to the QCTO. So the SETAs will remain in place. They're just going to work hand in hand with the QCTO. So when we're talking occupational qualifications, what are we talking about? So occupational qualifications are divided into different components. So you first get your occupational qualification, which we refer to as a parent qualification. This is a registered national qualification associated with an occupation or profession resulting to a work-based learning, which consists of your knowledge modules, your practical modules, and your workplace modules. So learners doing occupational learnership, occupational qualifications, they must definitely be placed in a workplace environment. The second part of your occupational qualifications is your part qualifications. These are your units of learning taken from an occupational qualification. I always refer to these as baby qualifications. So what do I mean when I say they are taken from occupational qualifications? You will often find that full occupational qualifications have a high number of credits. And of course, they are made up of knowledge, practicals, and workplace. Part qualifications will be taken from those occupational qualifications. And I will use one qualification for example, which is financial advisory. That's a parent qualification. From that qualification alone, 3 qualifications are taken from it. Your healthcare benefits, your investment advisory, and so on. So 3 qualifications. So does this mean if you are accredited for a full parent qualification, you can automatically run with the part qualifications that are taken from the occupational qualifications? The answer to that is again no. You are required to apply for accreditation for every single qualification that you apply for every single qualification that you want to train. Whether this is whether this part qualification is taken from a full qualification that you have accreditation for or not, but new application is required for every single accreditation. And then we have your skills programs. Your skills programs are your occupational learning programs that are credit bearing, but they are not registered on the NQF. The skills programs sit with the QCTO. They are overseen by the QCTO, they are monitored by the QCTO. The whole process is done by the QCTO. So again, we're talking about occupational qualifications, part qualifications, and skills programs. It's very important for us to actually be able to identify the differentiating features regarding these 3 qualifications. So there are 2 key features that we need to look at: the credits and the integrated assessments. When you look at the occupational qualifications, again, which I refer to as a parent qualification, those have a minimum of 120 credits. They've got very high level of, high level of credits. And I know Elaine mentioned one of the qualifications earlier on, which sits with 546 credits. So it's quite a big number of credits, and it will, again, of course, will have an impact on the number of training days and how long the learners will be out of the workplace. Part qualifications have less than 120 credits, while skills programs have a minimum of 8 credits. When we look at the integrated assessments, your occupational qualifications and your part qualifications have ASA, which is your external integrated summative assessment. So this ASA is written right at the end after the learners have completed and have gone through all their modules and are deemed competent. While your skills program consists of FISA, which is your final integrated summative assessment, again, FISA needs to be completed by the learner right at the end of their skills program. The difference between ASA and FISA: ASA is monitored by the quality partner, which is the SETA that has developed the specific qualification. It is an exam that the learners come in and they sit and form. While FISA is monitored by the training provider. When we're talking about ASA, I'll give an example with Project Manager. Project Manager consists of 2 papers. So there's paper 1 for ASA and there's paper 2. However, these papers are not written on the same day. And again, the pass mark for these ACEs are quite high. Also, it depends on the SETA, but I am very much aware that for project management, the learner is required to obtain minimum of 70% to be able to pass ASA. And if a learner does not pass ASA, they cannot get their QCTO occupational certificate. Learner registration, which is again another question that has been going around. Yes, the learners are still required to be registered. So like Elaine mentioned earlier on, when we're looking at occupational qualifications, we are required to submit learner enrollment spreadsheet for occupational qualifications 21 days after the start of training. If a learner is doing an occupational qualification or part qualification that is registered as a learnership, we are again, as an SDP, required to submit the workplace agreements to the employer SETA within 30 days from the signature date. So this process doesn't really change much. We are currently doing it, but it's just that there's going to be two different types of enrollments this time around. The stage 2 for occupational qualifications and part qualifications will be for the training provider to submit ASA readiness spreadsheet at least 3 months prior to the anticipated date of ESA. So you will need to go back to your project plan, and when you can see that you're already almost at the end, your learners must definitely be registered for ASA. For skills programs, you've got 2 stages that you need to follow in order for you to be able to enroll and register your learners. You need to submit your implementation plan to the QCTO at least 5 days after the start of training. And they are very strict with the days. So please make sure that you do everything within the time frame. The stage 2 will be to submit learner achievements within 21 working days of the FISA being conducted. If you recall in my previous slide, I had mentioned that as a training provider, we get to monitor and assess FISA internally. So in order for the learners to get their SORs for FISA, we must be able to show that the learners have done training, they have gone through the FISA, and we must be able to submit an SOR and assessment report showing that the learners have been deemed competent for the skills program. Implementation process. Again, this is another question that seems to coming up quite a lot. So just in summary, you can choose to implement your project whichever way you're comfortable with. The QCTO or the quality partners do not really have not really given a guideline, but as long as you make sure that all your modules are covered. These are your knowledge modules, your practical modules, and your workplace modules. So you can either choose to start with your knowledge modules, get those assessed, move to your practicals, get them assessed, then move to your workplace modules. Or you can choose to integrate your knowledge modules with your practical modules and workplace modules and break them into clusters and train each cluster and get that assessed. Once all the assessment has been completed, then you will need to conduct your internal moderation just to make sure that all the gaps are closed and the learners have met the assessment principles. Once internal moderation has taken place, the learners will be required to write a mock exam. There is no stress, don't stress about where you're going to get these mock exams. Every SETA has developed exemplars that will prepare the learners for the ASA exam. So once the learners have written these mock exams and their assessment has taken place and they are deemed competent, the learners will then move to writing ASA. Learners who have not passed or are still deemed not yet competent for any of the modules, be it knowledge, practical, or workplace, they will not be able to write their ASA. So once the learners have written their ASA and have passed their exams according to the requirement as per the quality partner, they will then receive their certificate from the QCTO. So this is just a summary of how the implementation is to go. And okay, so now we get to the concerns and the implications, and I understand how everyone seems to be very concerned and very stressed and nervous about how the process is going to work. How does this impact the training providers? As training providers, all our accreditation for historically registered qualifications expired on the 30th of June 2023. This means that we've got up until the 30th of June 2024 to enroll all the learners that we have for historically registered learnerships. Last date of achievement is the 30th of June 2027. So by then we need to make sure that all our learners are out of the system and they have been exited. Does the SETA still accept accreditation for historically registered qualifications? The answer is no. The SETAs closed these platforms, and all training providers are now required to go through the QCTO and apply for occupational qualifications, be it occupational qualifications, part qualifications, or skills programs. What does the transition mean for our employers? Now, our employers will have to apply for workplace approval through the SETA to host learners. However, it is the STP's responsibility to facilitate the process. So every time an employer wants to take on new learners and they want to host new learners, we need to get approval for that specific program. Employers need to have workplace mentors with the required competency. This is very important because remember, when we're talking occupational qualifications, we're talking about transferring your skills. So it is very important to make sure that you've got mentors. And these are mentors that need to meet the requirements to be a mentor. What do I mean by saying you need to meet the requirements? If you are a mentor for a learner who's doing project manager, you must make sure that you at least have industry-related experience in project management, or you've got a project management qualification so that you can be able to assist your learner, transfer the skills and transfer the knowledge onto your learner. The SETAs and the QCTO, they make big emphasis on workplace approval and having mentors that meet all these requirements. Facilitators, assessors, and moderators. I know our facilitators, assessors, and moderators are very worried about what's going to happen to their scopes, where to from here, and do they need to be registered? So the answer is for now.
Here's what I found.
So the answer is for now, the QCTO and the SETAs, they place more emphasis on facilitators. And facilitators need to be subject matter experts. What do I mean by saying facilitators are required to be subject matter experts? They need to have the industry-related experience, at least the qualification that is related to the occupational qualification that they'll be facilitating, and also having a facilitator and an assessor certificate will be an advantage. So your SETA scopes will not be applicable for the occupational qualifications. Again, I'm going to use, let's use contact center as an example. If you want to be a subject matter expert. If you're going to be training contact center at level 5, you must have worked in a contact center environment, be it as a supervisor or a manager, but you must have an industry-related experience. It is also advisory for you to have a contact center qualification or any qualification that's equivalent to contact center. You must also be able to show that you are able to facilitate, you have facilitated, you have assessed, and you've got experience in moderation as well. So where to from here with the SMEs? I'd highly recommend that all the SMEs now go to the QCTO website and they will identify qualifications that they meet requirements for. Where do you see those requirements? All these requirements are indicated in the curriculum document on the QCTO website per qualification. Subject matter experts registration. Do we need to register? That's another question that has come up quite a lot. Do SMEs need to register to be able to assess and moderate? For now, only Services SETA has requested for the SMEs to be registered, and I've provided the email address. However, I'm also aware that with our internal facilitators that have tried registered, they've provided me with feedback that the LMIS has not loaded all the occupational qualifications on the LMIS. So what you can do is go ahead, send the email, and once those occupational qualifications have been loaded, then you can be linked to the qualification that you want to be registered for as an SME. For the other SETAs, the facilitators that meet the SME requirements, as explained in my previous slide, we will then use those facilitators as your assessors and your moderators. But then again, in order for, besides meeting the requirements and having the industry-related qualifications and experience, I must be able to see that you have done assessments in the past and you have done moderations in the past in order for you to be able to moderate and assess occupational qualifications. And if anything changes along the lines, we will definitely keep all our SMEs updated. Last but not least, what does it mean for our learners? So our learners now required to undertake the ASA exam and will be deemed competent to acquire an occupational certificate for full or part qualification. So learners can train throughout and they can be deemed competent internally for the knowledge, practical and workplace modules, but it does not mean that they'll get the certification at the end. They'll only get the certification once they've written the ASA and once they've passed the ASA. Statements of results are a prerequisite for the learners to access their ASA. So as an SCP, once your learners have concluded all your modules, you are required to then submit a statement of results to the QCTO. And in some cases, they might ask to sample some of your learner files, like the normal external verification process, to sample some of your learner files just to see that the learners, all the modules have been covered. So once you've submitted that SOR, the learners will then be able to sit in for ASA. We have no control as SDPs. We have absolutely no control regarding dates in which ASA will be written. These dates will be communicated to us by the quality partners. And we will then be able to communicate with our learners and our clients thereafter. SETA is a prerequisite to attain a statement of results for a skills program. Like I mentioned earlier on, learners cannot get SORs if we are not able to prove that after training has been conducted and internal assessments have been conducted, the learners have written ASA. It is again very important to make sure that SCPs do register the learners for ASA 3 months prior to them writing the exam. There were more questions around about where can we get a list of registered qualifications, part qualifications, learnerships, and so on. So all this information you will find on your QCTO website. So for the list of qualifications that have been registered, that will be under occupational qualification tab. It will give you a list of registered qualifications, part qualifications, registered qualifications, and part qualifications that have now been registered as learnerships, as well as skills programs. In order to obtain resources around about how do we go about applying for accreditation, what the process is, assessment, policies, and so on. Those resources you will find under the resources tab under policies and guidelines. So this brings me to, for any queries that you would like to inquire more about, please do contact us at info@ireland.co.za. We've given our information there. So I would like to hope that this presentation has given you more insight in terms of the questions that you've had and concerns that you've had. And if we didn't cover everything, please do feel free to ask us. And hopefully we will all, from today, we will all embrace the change, and good luck to everyone. Thank you. Elaine, please join me so that we can take questions.
All right, super. Thank you. Thank you so much, Donnie. There's a little bit of audio feedback on my side. I hope that it's been sorted out. Okay, there we go. Donnie, please know that we appreciate you at iLearn, and we are very grateful to have you working with us.
Thank you, Elaine. Appreciate you too.
Okay. All right, no problem. All right, so there are a couple of questions that have come up, and I'm going to address them as and when they have. So, all right, so Melanie Richards asked, so who does the SETA registration? Is it the employer? I'm going to just reiterate what I said before. The SETA registration of learnership agreements with your relevant SETA, that process remains unchanged. So service SETA, for example, we have to use, the employer has to use the LMIS, and the employer is responsible for that. With mixed SETA, for example, we would follow the normal letter of intent process, obtain the learnership agreements, and then follow the normal process there. I hope that answers your question, Melanie. And I think it's important, again, to, when you're chatting to your skills development provider, your SDP, that you make sure what the roles and responsibilities are. Then Perimal asked, how does this affect the BE scorecard? Usually BE runs for 12 months, yes, over one financial year. Again, with learnerships, for example, learnerships can run from anything from 12 to 24 months. So it would just depend on how you're going to allocate that from a BE perspective. As an example, if the qualification runs for 24 months, then the cost of training as well as the learner stipends, etc., will be claimable, and it would obviously apply over 2 financial years. Naturally, again, depending on when the SDP invoices you and when you make the payment on the training. Okay, how will we translate the minimum credits to our BE, as it is not a 12-month period? So keep in mind that if it's a registered learnership, it would more than likely be more than 120 credits, in which case the Q code would apply as a registered learnership, and the qualification would need to be delivered over a minimum of 12 months. Roy, you asked, can training be conducted on a single module from a qualification? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if it is a registered skills program, an accredited skills program with the QCTO, and it happens to be extracted from a full qualification. And no, obviously if it's not, but you can also train it, use the content if you wanted to as unaccredited. Marina Besta asked, what is the difference between assessors and SMEs? Dolly, do you want to answer that question?
Yes. Okay. So the difference between assessors and SMEs, your SMEs are your subject matter expert, and in order for you, so we will use the SMEs to be our facilitators. In order for you to be able to facilitate, you need to meet the requirements as per the curriculum document. So like I mentioned earlier on, for you to be an SME for project manager, you must have worked in a project management environment for at least a minimum of 3 years. It is also an advantage for you to have a project management qualification, and highly recommended that it must at least be an A2F level higher than the one that you'll be facilitating. So with the assessors will follow the same scope, because the SETAs have not yet registered or given us a go-ahead for the assessors to be registered. So for the assessor, you will need to meet the same requirements as per the SME, but you will be required to at least have experience in assessments. You must have been assessing for at least a minimum of 3 years. So that will be the difference.
All right, super, Dolly. Yeah, and as best practice, I mean, in the past, we've always applied that principle that irrespective of your scope, if you've got scope to deliver a management qualification, we do prefer our assessors and facilitators to be subject matter experts. So maybe it's just a little bit of a changeover in language also then. Okay, another question from Samantha. There are full qualifications, for example, mining operator, that is 70 credits, but is a full qualification. Please, can you clarify this? Dolly, do you want to take that one?
Okay, so I will need to then see if you can please, maybe after the webinar, share that the SACA ID with me, because in my understanding, full qualifications don't have less than 70 qualifications. Those are normally part qualifications. So again, if it is a full qualification, I guess it will be based on the SETA that has developed that qualification, but in most cases, your full qualifications cannot have anything less than 120 credits. And if you're going to be running that as a learnership, please just also make sure and double check that it is registered as a learnership.
Okay, super. And also when you go on the onto the QCTO website, and you've got the opportunity to actually open up that entire qualification, and there it will give you a lot more information around how that qualification or how that program is actually categorized.
Yeah. Just to add on that as well, Elaine, even if you go onto your SACA and you put on your SACA ID, it will tell you whether it's a part qualification or an occupational qualification. And if you scroll down, it will tell you from which parent qualification or full qualification is it taken from.
All right, super. Thank you, Dolly. Then there is another question here for you from Innocent. Are we allowed as skills development providers to offer FISA online? It might actually be nice if you can answer that question in relation to FISA as well as ASA.
Okay, so in terms of the online, whether you offer it online or not, ASA definitely, ASA is a no. They need to come in for ASA and sit for the exam. For FISA, this will be dependent on your accreditation type. Remember, when you're applying for accreditation, you either apply for your face-to-face/virtual accreditation, or you apply for online. And for you to apply for online, you must have all the resources and the systems in place to be able to deliver online. So if you are accredited to do an online training, then you can do FISA online. But if not, you will need to follow the accreditation that was granted to you, which is face-to-face or hard copies or soft copies, but definitely not online if you don't have an online accreditation.
All right, super. Thank you so much, Dolly. And there is a very interesting question here from Sulise. I think I'm hoping that I pronounced that correctly. Can a part qualification be offered as a registered learnership? And it is quite a curious question, because if we have a look at the learnerships that are registered, not all of them are over 120 credits. So I don't know if that's clarification that we maybe need to get from the QCTO.
Well, part qualifications can be enrolled, can be done as learnership. So if also, again, if you go to your QCTO website, you will get a list of all your registered learnerships, and they're not all full occupational qualifications. Some are full occupational qualifications, and some are part qualifications. Again, I'm going to use financial advisory because this is the one that I'm 100% sure of. Financial advisory is a full occupational qualification, and it's also registered as a learnership. And from financial advisory alone, there are 3 part qualifications, one of which is health care benefits. That's a part qualification, but that's also registered as a learnership. So you just need to make sure that when you select your qualifications from the list of registered occupational qualifications, be it part-time or not, you then again go into the tab that talks about registered learnerships. But in summary, part qualifications, there are quite a lot of part qualifications that are registered as learnerships. And I know some of which have very small credits, but if they are there and they are listed as registered as learnerships, then you can train them as learnerships.
Okay, all right, super. Thank you, Dolly. There's a question here from Dion. Are there any templates that can help us with the restructuring of content or new developments? So maybe, I'm not sure if the QCTO has got a resource section for templates.
No, there isn't. They don't really have a resource for templates. It's just their policies and guidelines. Maybe if you can go through their policies and their guidelines, you give you more of an idea of how to then restructure your templates.
Okay, all right, super. Thank you. We've got another question here. Nadia is asking, oops, sorry, hopped right up. Nadia is asking, can a provider that hosts and trains learners also be an assessment center to the very same learners, or do we have to book them at an external neutral venue. This is actually a question that was answered for us earlier this week. So QCTO hasn't given us a specific answer. There is one SETA that says yes, absolutely, we permit it, as long as the ASA invigilator is appointed by the SETA. Not a problem, because Ireland is also a registered assessment centre with a QCTO. In other words, can we deliver our own program and then have them sit for an invigilated ASA exam at our assessment centre? Some SETAs are saying yes, absolutely, as long as this is in place. Other SETAs are saying no, it would need to be at an external venue. So when right at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that there are variations of interpretation, and that is why we need to address these questions on a case-by-case, SETA-by-SETA basis. Hadio has asked, can a skills program be created from the theory modules of a part qualification? The answer there, Dolly, you can confirm, is no. We can't create anything outside of what the QCTO has allowed for us to use within a specific category.
Just to add on that,
yeah.
Just to add on that, Elaine, unlike remember, these are completely different qualifications. They're not like the SETA qualifications where you can take a unit standard from a full qualification that you're accredited for and make it a skills program. So if you want a skills program, you will need to go and apply for the registered skills programs that the QCTO has put together. So you can't take a module out of either a part qualification or a full qualification and train it as a skills program.
Okay, yeah, we really are at the mercy of the QPs, the SETAs, who are developing these skills programs and qualifications. Right, Alison has asked, for full qualifications not yet listed as learnership, should we carry on with the accreditation and content development in the hope that they will shortly be registered as learnerships? Well, goodness me, how long is a piece of string? We can't, I don't believe that we can answer that question. I believe that there will be drive, as there has been from business. If the demand is great enough, then the QCTO will register it as a learnership. I think that behind the scenes they've got their own criteria that speaks to what a learnership is and why it should be registered as a learnership. Unfortunately, Alison, I don't have the answer to that question.
Just to add, Elaine, on that one. So if you will be applying for an occupational qualification that is not yet registered as a learnership, there's also another tab on the QCTO website that talks about recommended learnerships. So those will be occupational qualifications that have been submitted for the recommendation to be registered as learnerships. So maybe that could also help if it's not there as recommended at all, maybe, and you want it to be a learnership, maybe hold on until it's been submitted for recommendation to be registered as a learnership.
Okay, super, that's great, thank you. Then another question here, Pam, how does this affect learnerships for people who are living with disabilities? I'm happy to answer that. A lot of the qualifications currently registered with the QCTO are on not the generic ones. For example, your office administrator, what we used to call your business admin, your contact center, etc. Those qualifications are on higher NQF levels. The qualifications that have a lower NQF level are not as generic or easily applicable in an organization. So we are used to placing our candidates who are living with a disability on a more entry-level qualification to show that they can cope with the qualification, bring their morale up and give them a higher chance of success at the end of the day. So you're going to have to maybe recruit a little bit differently, or you're going to have to select a qualification. Again, I'll refer to the silver lining that is more in line with that individual's sweet spot, or what their dreams and visions are for their future. How to ask the cost you mentioned for the ASA, is this cost directly related to QCTO or is this a training provider fee? As far as I know, that this is a cost that goes to the training provider. It's, do we pay a cost to the QCTO, Dolly, for the ASA exam?
Yeah. So it's a cost
No,
to the training provider, and if our learners are then, if our learners are required to write the ASA outside of our assessment center, then we will need to take that cost and pay it to that accredited assessment center.
Okay, fantastic. That's a great question, though. I really appreciate that. Sibongile asked, how do assessor and moderator register on the QCTO website? Please share the guideline. I think, Dolly, you did provide a link there where they could go, and maybe what we can do is just share our presentation with the audience so that they've got access to those quick links.
So Elaine, that one is strictly for services SETA, the SME registration, that's for services SETA. At this point, none of the SETAs have indicated registration for the assessors and moderators. However, it is very important for training providers to just make sure that whoever they are recruiting to be the assessors or moderator meet the curriculum document, the requirements as per the curriculum document. And again, like I mentioned earlier on, they must have experience in assessing and moderating. And I think at a later stage,
SMEs.
Yes, and I think at the later stage, what we will do then, once we've received feedback from the SETAs, whether or not the assessors will be registered or not, then we can provide that update. But for now, the occupational qualifications strictly focus on facilitators.
Okay, all right, fantastic, thank you. I've been struggling to get venue and workplace to support my QCTO accreditation process. I'm in Cape Town, the satellite office in KZN and Gauteng and Eastern Cape. Kindly advise. All right, Timothy, I am going to be sharing my email address. You're more than welcome to pop those questions through to me, and then Dolly and I will be able to give you some feedback. It does need to meet the curriculum criteria for workplace accreditation, etc. Alternatively, you can do a venue share with another provider who has QCTO accreditation, but you're still going to have to go through the accreditation process independently using the other training provider's venue. If the training provider is accredited with one SETA, does that mean they can get accredited for QCTO qualifications with other SETAs? Yes, that's correct, they can. Okay, so multiple SETA industries, okay, clear. In your opinion, is there room for generic qualifications, example, leadership? I do believe that there's always going to be room for that, because we're always going to have managers across different industries, but the QCTO is really trying to focus more on occupationally directed qualifications. So a production manager, a retail manager, a contact center manager, with the intention of enhancing the skill set of that individual in their role and in their industry. The 2,500 Rand for the exam fee. So yes, I had a look at the DG funding application for one of the SETAs for occupational qualifications, and the 2,500 Rand was included in their breakdown of funding. Skills program, as they credit bearing but not registered with the NQF, will they be a building block towards part or occupational qualifications? Dolly, can you answer that? Are the skills programs completely independent and not extracted from full qualifications and not recognized as part qualifications?
So if you're running with the skills programs, you're strictly running with the skills programs, they will not become part of either your part or your occupational qualifications. They're completely different. It is then different when you are doing a part qualification with a parent qualification. So let's say if you do a part qualification and you complete all your modules, you can then be exempted for the modules that you've covered. But skills programs don't build up to a PART qualification or occupational qualifications. They're completely independent. They stand alone.
Okay, fantastic, Dolly. And then I think just for clarity, there's a couple of questions coming up like this. A portfolio of evidence is still relevant and still going to be required. It is assessment-based, the entire qualification. So none of that changes as per the normal delivery of a learnership, for example.
Everything still remains the same. It's just that the difference now, also it depends from one qualification to another. You'll get qualifications where there's an internal summative assessment per module, and the assessments are not done in clusters. You are required to assess your learners per module, per practical module, knowledge module, workplace module. So everything still works the same. You've got your learner guides, your formatives, summative assessments, your practical modules, and your logbooks. Still remains the same. It's just that the content is completely different.
Okay, all right, super, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am aware that we're running over time, so whoever does need to drop off, I'm going to answer a couple more questions, but you will have access to the recording. Okay, what happens to the qualifications that are registered with SETA and not registered by QCTO as yet? So again, the SETA qualifications as they stand become null and void. Redevelopment of all of the new QCTO qualifications against their curriculum criteria will apply. So yeah, that's I don't think we can be more clear than that. Everything SETA qualification related is going to be falling away. Okay, all right. I think that's it for our questions and our answers. Our tech team would have shared with you our email addresses, or mine at least, and we'll support any sort of questions that we can from anybody who wants to know a little bit more information, future questions perhaps as and when things happen. So ladies and gentlemen, in closing, Dolly, I want to thank you so much for your technical contribution. I think it really shed a lot of light for a lot of people, and I hope that at the end of this entire webinar, a lot of fears have been allayed and a lot of questions have been answered, and I hope that there's not more questions at the end of the day to some of the answers that we've given. But if they are, let's weather the storm, ride the wave, and navigate it together. Thank you so much, and from everybody at the iLearn team, we wish you a fantastic week ahead.
Thanks, Elaine. Thank you, everybody.